we're gonna talk about
Straight Outta Compton.
I was very curious to watch the movie because it was set during an era that I was a little kid and I was kind of shielded from. I was vaguely exposed to the Rodney King beatings, but I really wasn't exposed to all the racial tension going on. I really had no idea. And so I only became familiar with that as I got older, watching a lot of black stand-up comedy and growing up with black people. I'm like, oh, I see there's something else happening here that no one is talking about. So I'm really glad this movie came out, and its timing is perfect with all the stuff that's surfacing in the media lately.
Well, that's why people are scared that it's coming out, right?
Right. I mean, these issues have been around for quite a while, as the movie illustrates, but it hasn't really been spoken about on the surface level until recently. And that's why the timing of the movie is perfect, in my opinion. Regarding the movie itself, just up front, I'm going to say I liked the movie a lot. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm not into hip-hop anymore. I used to be when I was a little kid. I was a big Criss Cross fan.
Oh my god. Did you sag your pants?
I did for a little bit. So I wasn't going into this for the hip-hop music. I was going into this for the story, for the history, for the acting, because there was actually some really decent acting in there. I didn't realize that Ice Cube's kid was the one that played Ice Cube.
I was like, wow, he's really good.
I know.
He looks like him too.
His mannerisms, his voice, I'm like, wow, this guy nailed it. But he said he's been studying his dad for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the role was just handed to him. He had to actually work hard for that role over the course of 2 years because it wasn't really guaranteed to be his. I guess Ice Cube really made him fight for it, which is great. I like that. The results were awesome. Ice Cube is the person I think everybody's most familiar with.
Really?
Because he's also in movies and whatnot.
Yeah, and Dr. Dre.
Dr. Dre I'm familiar with music-wise. Eminem made such a big deal about how Dr. Dre was his mentor and whatnot. I'm like, oh, this Dr. Dre person must be important. And then Apple, a few years later, buys his shit for $1 billion.
Right?
So I know that Dr. Dre had been around for a long time. I just didn't know what kind of impact he was. I didn't realize he was part of n.w.a. I didn't even know what n.w.a. was, to be honest. I only learned about that in the movie. I knew of Dr. Dre and
I didn't know what it stood for. I just like, oh, n.w.a.
Yeah, no white people allowed. That's what I thought it stood for. Just kidding.
Wow.
No, there'd have to be a P in there. But the acting was awesome. The all around. There were moments in the film that I thought were slightly melodramatic, but overall, it was a really good package. There was just some musical cues that were just like, why is there music right now? It's already sad. You don't need to make it more sad with the music.
I'm trying to tug at your heartstrings.
If you guys have seen 8 Pounds, I think that's what it's called, the Will Smith movie.
Yeah, that was really sad.
The epic reveal of what happened to Will Smith and his wife when the car's tumbling and whatnot, it's so super slow-mo with this epic music, and I'm like, if you just did the thing without the slow-mo, without the music, it would have been way more impactful.
You think so?
Yeah, if you just did it, boom, and then you see his wife is dead, and his response to that would have hurt a lot more than the music. Otherwise, the music needed to be, more subtle. And so, coming back to Straight Outta Compton, there were moments in the film where the music just was a little too much in the foreground. But outside of that, it was fine. The movie was a little bit on the long side, but it kind of had to be because it was covering the most important years of development for these people when they skyrocketed to fame for the first time. And yet, it felt like it was missing pieces at the same time. Because, for instance, and this is not a huge spoiler, there's a car chase with Dr. Dre and the cops. Then he gets arrested. And the next scene we see him, he's just out of jail. He's not even, there's no association with jail made whatsoever.
They don't show all the bad stuff that happened.
They do show bad stuff that happened.
Not that much. I'm pretty sure a lot more happened, violence-wise, between themselves and other people.
Oh. Why? Why do you assume that?
I don't know.
I thought it was pretty straightforward when they show them with guns, chasing other people with guns. All I mean to say is that there were moments that just felt like it just kind of skipped over stuff, and it kind of had to, but it almost felt like it would have been better served. This story would have been better served as a TV show, like an HBO series or something like that, where they could completely let loose like they would with a movie, but spread it out over the course of maybe 5 to 10 episodes where you can really get into the meat of things, because it just completely lopped stuff out. Like I said, that Dr. Dre scene where he's being handcuffed, and then the next scene you see him, he's with friends and everything's cool. It's like,
it's not important. He got money, he got bailed out.
I guess so. I suppose that's, you just assume his lawyer came in and then, but that's a big deal to be chased by cops, a car chase, and he's not just pulling over, you know? It's not like a ticket.
I know.
He ran from the cops. That's evasion. It's
Dr. Dre.
okay. The movie takes place around the time of the Rodney King beating.
The riot.
And I can't think of a lot of movies that have come out in the past 10 years that have kind of explored stories around that particular era. It was a really cool movie. It's positive feelings. It was an experience. The movie was more of an experience than a story because they still managed to find a way to have a story in there. I'm pretty sure there's a bit of fiction in order to cultivate this 3-act structure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It was a good movie. I liked it and I recommend it strongly. I think that everybody should watch it. Chloe was actually very adamant about watching the movie because of Ice Cube. Just this random obsession. And I told her she could watch it in 5 years.
I didn't realize all that police violence back then when I was a kid. I guess you're just kind of oblivious to that stuff, huh?
Well, yeah, you're a kid and your parents shield it from you, especially if you're kind of a whitewashed family. It's not going to be spoken about. And if it is spoken about, it's not going to be spoken about in a very kind and favoring way. Oh, the guy who played Dr. Dre had such a freaking cool voice.
Oh my god.
His voice was so awesome.
So smooth.
I know. It was like butter for the ears or something like that. Even when he was angry, he's like, me and Pac are in there working. What are y'all doing? And it's just the way his voice resonated. And he doesn't sound like that just as his normal voice.
Oh, he doesn't?
No.
Oh. Can we talk about the Tupac guy? He looks like him.
There's Tupac and there's Snoop Dogg that were part of that story. Well, let's focus on the Tupac guy. It was almost like they tried to find someone who looks exactly how you picture him in your brain. But he looked so much like him, it was almost like the Uncanny Valley effect. I experienced this.
That was the actor, right?
It was a real person, but it was almost like watching in Fast and Furious 7 with the CGI of Paul Walker.
Yeah.
There's this Uncanny Valley effect where you're like, it looks real, but my brain just started questioning it for some reason and had kind of this weird reaction to it. Even though the guy they picked for Tupac basically looked exactly like him and sounded like him.
It's crazy.
The Snoop Dogg guy didn't look as much like him. At least I don't remember what Snoop Dogg looked like when he was younger, so maybe it looked like him exactly. But he definitely sounded like him, and his mannerisms were perfect. Everyone in the theater was kind of laughing because it was such a perfect imitation. I'm almost tempted to go back and watch Straight Outta Compton again, just because I liked it so much. One of the cool aspects of watching it, I strongly recommend watching it in the movie theater, because where else are you going to hear that music in its context with the intense bass and volume that a movie theater can deliver? Nowhere else. You're not going to... Maybe I can get that at home, kind of, with my 7.1 sound system, but it's still not going to compete with just that sheer volume of a movie theater sound system. It's like the whole room was just pumping. Check it out, you guys. If you have any questions about the movie that you want me to answer, or if you want Faye to answer, go ahead and comment below or send an email to jabyandfamily@gmail.com. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and peace out.